It looks like the brass gods have finally smiled on the shooters of the world and given them a good, viable, premium option for reloading brass for the 6mm arc. Let's talk about that today. Okay, there is a difference between good brass, okay brass, and premium brass for reloading for every cartridge. Okay, and if you're like me, I'm a reloader. I like to reload my own stuff, and I like to try out new cartridges. I've been really getting into the 6 arc in the last few years, and I've been searching, hunting, and waiting for somebody to finally start making some great brass. Not just okay, not just good, but great premium brass for the 6mm arc, because I think it's one of those calibers that deserves it. Now, since its introduction in 2020, the primary option we've had as reloaders for the 6mm arc is Hornady brass, which Hornady brass is good brass. It is. I've reloaded probably more Hornady brass than just about anything in my entire 20-something years of reloading. I started out with Hornady brass, I started out with Hornady bullets, I started out with a Hornady reloading manual, and that's how I learned to reload. I've tried just about every kind of brass there is out there for like 308, 6.5 Creedmoor, all those different kind of common calibers, and everything I've reloaded over the last 20-something years, which was, you know, 270, 30-06, 300 Win Mag, 300 Win Short Mags, 300 Wisdom, what is it? There was a 223 WSSM. I loaded a lot for that at one point for varmints, 22-250, all the classics, you know. But the 6mm arc has been seriously lacking since its introduction in 2020. That's 4 years ago now. 4 years. It took 4 years for an extremely popular cartridge that really kind of took the small frame AR by storm. I mean, it's one of those things that there's a lot of people out there that comment about their disdain for the 6 arc and compare it to all these other Wildcats that'll never be a thing ever. And, you know, they compare it with hate because they haven't ever actually shot it or experienced it. Some people have shot it and experienced it and just don't like it. Okay, that's fair. But for the most part, everybody I've talked to who shot the 6 arc, loved the cartridge, hate the availability of brass and ammo options for reloading. There's not a whole lot out there right now still. But finally, 4 years later, we've finally gotten 2 good options that have come along, and I'm gonna give you just a real brief synopsis about my thoughts on those just off the top, right? Okay, now one of them I haven't reloaded at all. One of them I've been doing a lot of reloading for this year in that brass. All right, so like I said, to start off with, Hornady had brass from the beginning for this. I bought all the brass I could get. It's pretty good brass. I've reloaded a lot of it. I'm getting about 4 or 5 firings out of each piece of brass. I have about 100 rounds now that 100 pieces of brass now that I probably have 5 to 6 loadings in at least, and I've actually had to start throwing them away. Primer pockets are finally opening up and that kind of stuff. Let's just call it what it is. Hornady does a pretty darn good job with their brass and bullets. That's, you know, a great option. It's out there. It's inexpensive and affordable. It's a great option. But there's always room for more, and there's room for improvement. The second option I'm going to talk about came along recently, only in the last year, from Starline. Now, Starline, I don't have a whole lot of experience with their brass prior to using the 6 arc. And it seems to be really good brass, really consistent size and shape and weight and all that good stuff. Although a little brittle, I noticed. It is a little brittle. It ruined my small base sizing die almost immediately when I started using that. Regardless of how well I cleaned or lubed the case, they started getting stuck almost immediately, and then one of them got stuck irreparably and destroyed the reloading die. So that was fun. And trying to get it out, what was happening is they were getting stuck in there, and then they would just pull the head off, or the tail off the end. The extractor, when I'd pull it out of my press, it would just rip the back end off of them. It's really brittle, so it would just break right off. I don't think that it was just too tight of an issue, because I actually measured everything with micrometers and calibers and stuff like that. And it's just that the brittleness of the brass, given any amount of friction coming out of a small base die, was just popping the back end right off of it like it was nothing. So far as reloading goes, pounds for pennies, the loads I was shooting in the Hornady really shot comparably in the Starline. So if I just swapped a load, said, hey, took this amount of grains, this bullet weight, this all overall dimensions, and threw it in the Starline, I noticed an almost identical correlation in velocities, pressure, standard deviations, and extreme spread. So they're very consistent. So far as, you know, if you have previous load data from your Hornady brass, it worked out pretty good with the Starline, but the brass itself is pretty brittle. So I was looking for something different to replace that and not have to deal with that hanky brass anymore. Now, don't get me wrong, I've got probably 500 or 600 rounds of the Starline brass, which I am going to load for my, you know, practice loads. They make, I would say, it make a great hunting load, great practice load brass, something that you know, may not worry too much about losing on the range. The topic of today, though, is this very exciting box of Alpha Munitions Premium 6-arc rifle brass. Small rifle primer, flash hole .08, 2.03 millimeter. I'm very excited about this. Alpha Brass, or Alpha Munitions, makes some really darn premium brass. And if you've never used this stuff, I highly recommend trying it out. It's up there on the level of Lapua and stuff like that. Nosler, Norma, Lapua. It is great brass. But let's crack into the box and see what we find, because I haven't actually opened this yet. So I'm kind of curious. All right, I got my little Berger 108 Elite Hunters. This is gonna be my hunting setup because I had some really good luck with this stuff, and so I bought some more, and I'm gonna load up some premium hunting bullets for my AR, my DMR, and also for a future bolt action project. So anyway, I wanted to have some really good brass for that. So here we are with Alpha Munitions brass, and I'm telling you this, Alpha Munitions knows how to package, because they give you this handy dandy ammo box with your brass. This is amazing, wonderful. This is something you should do. Alpha Munitions brass. I like it. And they have, you know, pretty cool pictures on the front. I mean, you know, but this is also really cool because that artist did a great job. Whoever that is, high five guy. Alpha Munitions, let's dig into this. I hate unboxing videos, but this is really exciting. And right off the bat, everything is beautiful. Just beautiful. This is a beautiful sight. I mean, come on. How do you not love that right there? Beautiful sight. Let's see what we got here. Properly annealed case necks, clean flash holes, everything's even and deburred. Oh man, even it looks concentric. It actually looks concentric. If you've ever gotten a box of Hornady brass, or the bag of Hornady brass, or even the Starline, you're gonna find about maybe 10 to 15% are dinged case necks, so you have to resize them. I'm gonna go through all these and see if that's the case here, but I highly doubt that any of this stuff's gonna need to be resized before reloading. Actually, I'm not going to. I'm just going to drop my ammo and powder in here and see what stinking happens. I'm gonna drop some powder loads in here that I know work well, load them up with some Primo Federal Gold Medal Match primers, and see what we can get out of the 6mm arc in this Alpha Brass. Let's weigh it real quick though. All right, so the only real comparable brass I have to this for the 6-arc is actually Lapua brass. And no, Lapua does not make 6-arc brass, but they do make 6.5 Grendel brass. And so I bought about 100 rounds of it 2 or 3 years ago, and when I couldn't find brass even from Hornady, when things were getting so scarce, and I trimmed them down and necked them down to the 6mm, and they work great. It worked fantastic. So this is also a really great option if you're looking for premium brass for the 6-arc. Lapua will work, and Lapua makes second to none brass, except for maybe Alpha. These two are like neck and neck when it comes to quality, in my opinion. But I don't want to have to do that because it's a pain in the neck. So let's just weigh some of this here Alpha and see what we got, and I'm going to compare that to the Starline brass and see what we kind of have for comparable weights. So the Starline 6mm arc brass, it has a yellower, more yellow tinge to it than the Alpha, and that to me is a metallurgical thing that kind of, it's a visual tell of some maybe differences that may make it inferior. Let's put it that way. We're looking at 108.5 grains for the Starline, 109.4. So you get a little bit denser brass for the Alpha. You're gonna get a little bit denser. Let's do a couple of them just to be sure. 109.6. I'm gonna do these completely at random. Grab a couple more. 109.5. So they're all within about so far, about 0.2 of a grain of one another. 109.4. Let's grab it. That's really consistent. I like that. That's nice. 109.8. Let's do that one again. I dropped it gently. 109.8. All right, so they're all within about a half a grain of one another so far as weight goes. That's a good sign. 109.7. I like it. I like what I'm seeing so far. Haven't seen any dinged up necks. 109.8. All right, fantastic. Now let's take a couple Starline just to be fair. And what did we get on the first one? We had 108.4, 108.8, 108.6, 108.8. Okay, so the Starline looks like it's at least fairly consistent in its weight. All right, so the Starline, you know, the weight there at least tells me one thing. The Starline's pretty consistent in its weight too. It's just a little lighter, on the lighter side to the Alpha Munitions. So usually that translates to a little denser brass, a little heftier, a little sturdier brass, especially around the base, the bottom there for the premium stuff. And it's kind of the same with Lapua and stuff like that too. I don't have any Lapua or Hornady that are clean and fully prepped without primers in them. So they're all, everything I have is either loaded or in the queue for full reloading. The weights don't really tell you a whole lot overall, honestly, the weight of brass, other than maybe just the density of the brass itself. So Alpha looks like it's a little on the more dense side, which I like, because it generally translates to sturdier brass that will last longer. You can reload it more. So that, I really don't have a whole lot else, but other than, holy crap, I'm really excited. We've got some really premium Alpha brass from Alpha Munitions for the 6mm arc. And I'm really excited to reload this stuff. It looks like premium brass. It just has that color and tinge to it of that primo brass. You can just kind of tell. You can. Cheap looks cheap. This does not look cheap. It looks awesome. The price on this I will put up here. Price per piece. You can get it at Graf's right now that I know of. I've got some there. I don't know if you can get it at Brownells or anything yet. Maybe Midway USA, you can try them out. It is available online in some places. Maybe some of the other reloading supply places out there. I can't think of off the top of my head, but if you're a reloader, you probably know where to go. So I'm just gonna leave that there. Alpha Munitions, 6mm arc brass. Finally we have a good option, a great option. I think it's a great option. I'm excited to reload this. I'm gonna share a video on that. I'm gonna throw some of my standard loads in for hunting, some of my standard loads in for target, and like some of the stuff I've already tried out, see what we get. So thanks for joining me. Y'all have a blessed day.